Hello, I'm Tim, and I'm reading from one of the best novels ever written, George Orwell's 1984. Everybody's into it. Depending on what happens in November, you may be living it. We'll see. Uh, the telescreen struck 14. He must leave in 10 minutes. He had to be back at work by 14:30. Curiously, the chiming of the hours seemed to have put new heart into him. He was a lonely ghost uttering a truth that nobody would ever hear. But so long as he uttered it in some obscure way, the continuity was not broken. It was not by making yourself heard, but by staying sane that you carried on the human heritage. He went back to the table, dipped his pen, and wrote, "To the future or to the past, to a time when thought is free, when men are different from one another and do not live alone, to a time when truth exists and what is done cannot be undone, from the age of uniformity, from the age of solitude, from the age of Big Brother, from the age of doublethink, greetings." He was already dead, he reflected. It seemed to him that it was only now, when he had begun to be able to formulate his thoughts, that he had taken the decision or the decisive step, excuse me. The consequences of every act are included in the act itself. He wrote, "Thought crime does not entail death. Thought crime is death." Now that he had recognized himself as a dead man, it became important to stay alive as long as possible. Two fingers of the right hand were ink stained. It was exactly the kind of detail that might betray him. Some nosy zealot in the ministry, a woman probably, someone like the little sandy-haired woman or the dark-haired girl from the fiction department, might start wondering why he had been writing during the lunch intervals, why he had used an old-fashioned pen, what he had been writing, and then drop a hint in the appropriate quarter. He went to the bathroom and carefully scrubbed the ink away with the with the gritty dark brown soap, which rasps your skin like sandpaper and was therefore well adapted for this purpose. He put the diary away in the drawer. It was quite useless to think of hiding it, but he could at least make sure whether or not its existence had been discovered. A hair laid across the page ends was too obvious. With the tip of his finger, he picked up an identifiable grain of whitish dust and deposited it on the corner of the cover where it was bound to be shaken off if the book was moved. Winston was dreaming of his mother. He must, he thought, have been 10 or 11 years old when his mother had disappeared. She was tall, statuesque, rather silent woman with slow movements and magnificent fair hair. His father he remembered more vaguely as dark and thin, dressed always in neat dark clothes. Winston remembered especially the very thin soles of his father's shoes, and wearing spectacles. The two of them must evidently have been swallowed up in one of the first great purges of the 50s. At that moment, his mother was sitting in some place deep down beneath him, with his young sister in her arms. He did not remember his sister at all, except as a tiny, feeble baby, always silent, with large, watchful eyes. Both of them were looking at him. They were down in some subterranean place, bottom of the well, for instance, or a very deep grave, but it was a place which, already far below him, was itself moving downward. They were in the saloon of a sinking ship, looking up at him through the darkening water. There was still air in the saloon. They could still see him and he them, but all the while they were sinking down into the green waters which in another moment must hide them from sight forever. He was out in the light and air while they were being sucked down to death, and they were down there because he was up here. He knew it. and they knew it. And he could see the knowledge in their faces. There was no reproach either in their faces or in their hearts. Only the knowledge that they must die in order that he must remain alive, and that this was part of the unavoidable order of things. So here you're dealing with memory, past and present. This is why history is important. We need to study it while we can, because there may come a point where it gets rewritten and given back to you as something that is not. I think the society will probably completely collapse before that happened, but you never can tell. So hopefully you're watching my videos and hopefully you're paying attention, because that's what I'm trying to give you with fiction and nonfiction. Until next time, I appreciate your support, and I ask you to take care of your mind, take care of your body, and be safe.